the myths around America that we grew up with, that we as men are expected to be protectors and providers. Masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right.
No matter how much you believe in your policies, so much of politics is just vibes.
There's another Zoom that I invite you all to called Couches Against Trump.
I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris.
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Kamala Harris smiles. She laughs.
I also have one. I just haven't been wearing it because I have the sweet man bun.
But it is time to have a woman because that sensibility is something we've never experienced.
We always pass out rubber duckies.
Never has it been more important for us to stand up to his mental illness.
If we're really honest, in this white dudes group, most of the biggest, baddest cons in the world are guys.
I stood over my kid's bed and I wept.
Those clips were from the White Dudes for Harris Zoom call, which was exactly as cringy as it sounds. From actor Josh Gad saying that he wept in his child's room when Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, to Pete Buttigieg saying that politics is really just about the vibes, man. It was cringy take after cringy take.
Over the last few years, I've been thinking a lot about men.
Along the same lines as the White Dudes for Harris call, there was also a Women for Harris Zoom call, but because you're in clown world, this call was led by a man pretending to be a woman.
Good evening, folks. My name is Charlotte Clymer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a writer and activist, and I am so excited to be part of this historic gathering of women across the country.
Back to the guys not pretending to be women, here's the guy who organized the event talking about how he didn't wear their signature hat because he needed to show off his, quote, sweet man bun before saying that masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right. I don't know about you, but when I hear sweet man bun, my first thought is I really want to be lectured by that guy about masculinity.
And that happens at the same time as the myths around America that we grew up with, that we as men are expected to be protectors and providers, are going out into an economy that doesn't really allow for that, especially for working class folks. And sort of like compounding on that, masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right into something that feeds into and exacerbates the loneliness epidemic, as well as the mental health crisis that many face that end up leading to really destructive behaviors. We aren't the only ones that are hurt by these things. Black and brown people, LGBTQIA plus people, especially trans women and indigenous people, and all sorts of other folks in our society who've been historically and often still today are marginalized and being hurt, demonized, and marginalized even further.
Let's go and get Kamala Harris elected, and let's make sure that we donate. If you can, please donate at the link below to help support this. And thank you again, Ross, and everybody else on here for having me. And yeah.
Thank you so much, David. You win the award for best hat of the evening. I also have one. I just haven't been wearing it because I have the sweet man bun, and I wanted to make sure everyone could see my extremely sweet man bun.
Pete Buttigieg, Tim Walz, Eric Swalwell, and JB Pritzker all participated in the call. As I mentioned before, Buttigieg was talking about vibes, Walz defended socialism, Swalwell told a most likely made-up story about his children, and Pritzker might have won the cringe award of the night for his attempt at burning the Trump Vance ticket with a cat joke.
No matter how much you believe in your policies, so much of politics is just vibes. Having said that, the vibes right now are incredible. My husband Chaston and I were home over the weekend and stopped by a canvas kickoff in Michigan at the Traverse City field office close to our house. I haven't seen that kind of energy for Democrats in Michigan since I was campaigning in the midterms for leaders like Gretchen Whitmer, and we all know how that turned out. The momentum is extraordinary.
I got to be honest that when I'm invited to an event with a name like White Dudes for Harris, it doesn't usually sound like something I would join, but this is a terrific cause. And I'll keep my remarks short. I know that we have a lot of speakers. And afterward, of course, there's another Zoom that I invite you all to called Couches Against Trump, better known as CATS.
Here's the great news. How often in 100 days do you get to change the trajectory of the world? How often in 100 days do you get to do something that's going to impact generations to come? And how often in the world do you make that bastard wake up afterwards and know that a black woman kicked his ass and sent him on the road? And that's something that guy's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. So I got to tell all of you, please do what you can. But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
So to Donald Trump, I say, if you want to find out how this movie ends, you should go ask them, but you're going to have to go to a prison to do it. So bring your own story and personalize it to you. People like to repeat something that made them smile. So tell me a story or bore me. Finally, I think about my 3 little kids and what we can do to make sure they don't have to suffer the real consequences of Donald Trump. Recently, I walked in a parade in my hometown of Dublin, California, and we always pass out rubber duckies in every parade. It was the first parade that I asked my children to join me. And so I had my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old, they're working the parade, they're passing out duckies. And my 7-year-old Nelson walks up to a little girl to give her a little rubber ducky with the campaign logo on it. And as she hands the girl the ducky, this older guy standing behind her, who I think is probably her dad, looks at my son and he says, "We're for Trump." And my son looks at me and then he looks back at the guy and he said, "Who's Trump?" And I think that is what is really right in front of us. We have a chance to make sure that our kids never, ever know or live through the worst policies of Donald Trump. For the rest of us, sure, we won't be able to forget what he's done, but we can really save our children. But I also want you to know that we can talk less and less about Donald Trump. We've had MAGA idiots and violence for so long now. You may think that that's going to be with us forever. We're wrong. It won't be. He's had an evil charisma and a 14-year-long political ad in the television show that he ran. But I promise you, if we beat Trump in November, we will finally have extinguished this MAGA madness forever. Because you can't just be an asshole and ride to be the GOP nominee. If you don't believe me, just ask Ron DeSantis. So let's do this. 99 days to go, dudes. Let's have some fun, though. And something I learned in sports growing up, the team that always has the most fun wins. And I'm having a lot of fun tonight. 99 more fun days to go.
Of course, it wasn't just politicians on the call. We also have to hear from celebrities in the progressive bubble known as Hollywood. Sean Astin, aka Rudy, claimed that Harris is the full package. Joseph Gordon-Levitt claimed Donald Trump is not a successful businessman. And again, Josh Gad recounted his weeping after Hillary Clinton lost. The main sentiment coming from this is pretty simple. They don't like Trump because he hurt their feelings or something, and Kamala Harris is a woman, therefore she equals a good candidate. Clips like these perfectly illustrate the cancer on society that is identity politics.
I can't hear myself, but that's okay.
We can hear you.
Oh yeah, okay, great. Okay, good. So great to be here, Ross. I gotta laugh because I accepted the invitation. You know, I was brought to the party not so much as being white, and I certainly am, but because I'm a dude, you know. So a friend sent me this email today with your hat on there. And I said, oh, I got to have one of those. I qualify, man. I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris. So wonderful to be here. And I dug what you said, Maurice. That's really, terrific. The fact that you're here, you're a black man here with us white guys. I had no idea that this whole thing that we're up to was based on Black women for Harris, right? And so it kind of morphed into white men, white dudes for Harris. And I'm excited, man. I think, the fact that Joe has passed the baton so beautifully, and Kamala is just so certainly our girl. I can see her being president. I'm so excited. A woman president, man. How exciting.
Get the placemat out when you're with a kindergartner and you're looking at the placemat of the presidents. Not one woman. And the other side, they try and take everything that's good about us and demean it. Kamala Harris smiles. She laughs. She dances. She has joy. She's alive. And they try and ridicule her for that. And they try and undermine us for that. This is a serious person who can prosecute a tough case against people when she's in the Senate. Those are some of the most exciting moments during that awful time, was watching this senator take them to task. Kavanaugh and some of those other people that I watched her fully prepared for her moments. So exquisite with her use of language. Such seriousness of purpose that she has. Full package.
A couple of things I want to say. One is that the reason that I am so excited about Kamala Harris is that she is intelligent, she has grit, she's funny, she's experienced, she's dedicated to making a system that works for everyone. She's got tenacity, and she happens to be a woman. Which is in some ways the least important part, because all those other qualities make her more qualified than pretty much any candidate for president we've ever had. But it is time to have a woman, because that sensibility is something we've never experienced. And the experience of the white dudes has not always gone so well for us in that office.
When I meet people, I'm a working actor. I think more recently, I'm much more like a professional selfie taker. I take selfies all the time in the airports, in the supermarkets, on the streets, always selfies. And I ask them, you don't have to tell me who you're going to vote for. Are you registered? That's the most important thing. I saw a statistic, it was on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, that 40 million registered Democrats didn't vote in 2020, which is astonishing. I tell people, go to iwillvote.com. It's very simple. You can go to their website. You can find out where your polling place is. You can get access to mail-in ballots, but you've got to vote. You've got to vote. And I'm going to keep my remarks short, because I've agreed with pretty much everything that has been said in the last couple of hours. But it's just so important. It's what I tell people is, you don't have to read all 900 pages, but Google Project 2025. It's more terrifying than anything that Edgar Allan Poe or Stephen King ever wrote. The idea of firing 50,000 civil servants and putting in loyalists who, the prerequisite is you have to believe that the 2020 election was stolen. It's just unthinkable that they're so forthcoming with what they want to do. Get rid of the Department of Education completely. They're going to try and remake what we know as democracy into an autocracy. It's no surprise that he idolizes Viktor Orban and the dictators of the world. That's what he yearns to be. Again, he said it out loud that he wants to be a dictator from day one. So never has it been more important for us to stand up to his mental illness and vote for Kamala in 2024.
I want to talk for a little bit about business. I've mostly earned my living as an entertainer, but I've also run a company. My dad ran a small business successfully for 30 something years. His dad was a successful businessman who started when he was 12 years old, working in South Central LA during the Depression, 12 years old, keeping the books for his dad's business. So business kind of runs in my blood. And I think that's why it stands out to me when I hear people say this thing. You've probably heard people saying this. They say, yeah, I don't like Trump. I know he's a bad guy, but he's a businessman. And, times are hard, and I have to look out for me and my family. And we need a president who can be good for the economy, who's a businessman. And it's understandable. Money is short in this country for a lot of people. So I can see how people get there. But I want to talk about this. First of all, I'm not so sure Trump has been a good businessman. I mean, he likes to say that he's a self-made man, but he's lying. He inherited a ton of money from his dad. And when you start out with that much initial capital, it's a little bit like shooting fish in a barrel. But even if he were a successful businessman, which I'm not sure he has been, I think there are pretty much two different types of successful business people in this world. There are the honest business people who have an honest goodness, valuable product or good or service that they can bring to the world. And they treat their employees well. They treat their investors and their vendors and their customers well. And in turn, they are treated well and they do well as a businessman or business person. An honest business person. That's the kind of business person my dad was. And it's the kind that I strive to be. There's another type of successful businessman or woman, business person. And that's the con man. And I know there are also con women too, but if we're really honest, in this white dudes group, most of the biggest, baddest cons in the world are guys.
They have Kid Rock, Kevin Sorbo, and a dolphin aficionado. And we have the Hulk, Samwise Gamgee, Luke Skywalker, and Mayor Pete just on this Zoom. That's pretty damn cool. I'm a white dude. That much you can probably tell by now. But I also happen to be a father of two girls. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I'm not sure if you guys can recall that feeling you had on the night of Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. I stood over my kid's bed and I wept. I wept because I felt like I let them down. I wept because they had the chance and we had the chance to have a female president for the first time in our lives and in the history of this nation. And instead, we put a man in office who not only disdains women, but whose own wife can't look him in the eye.
Aside from the comedic aspect of people who play make-believe for a living lecturing others about politics, there was one comment in particular that jumped out as extra delusional. It was when Sean Astin said this.
So exquisite with her use of language. Such seriousness of purpose that she has. Full package.
Now I'm going to just simply play Kamala Harris speaking, and as you watch this, just remember she is so exquisite with her use of language.
Work of community work, and in particular violence intervention, is about investing in the community, understanding our capacity, understanding the greatness, and then being motivated with that knowledge to do what we can to reduce harm, but not for the sake only of reducing harm, but in investing in the potential and the greatness. That is the essence of this work. And it is a false choice to suggest that you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and we need an assault weapons ban. I support the Second Amendment, and we need universal background checks. I support the Second Amendment, and we need red flag laws.
For any leftist or anti-gun people who may be watching, it couldn't be more clear in the Second Amendment right here. Shall not be infringed.
And I again want to thank the Secretary for your work. This issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go. It's that basic. And I think the first part of this issue that should be articulated is AI is kind of a fancy thing. It's, first of all, it's 2 letters. It means artificial intelligence. But ultimately what it is it's about machine learning. And so the machine is taught. And part of the issue here is what information is going into the machine that will then determine, and we can predict then, if we think about what information is going in, what then will be produced in terms of decisions and opinions that may be made through that process. On the bus, go round and round. Here's the thing. We were all born knowing that there's nothing we can take for granted.
What?
When you're a role model, people watch what you do to see if it matches what you say. And increasing the use and development of apps. On that last point, I'd ask you to just imagine your own smartphone and the apps that it contains, and what those apps then give you in terms of access to a myriad of information. The idea of exploring the unknown. And systems that help you go about your daily life. Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. You know, so many of us have come from movements that were about the fight for equality. We also understand there's a difference between equality and equity. Equity is everyone deserves to have, right, and be treated equal. But equity understands that not everybody starts out on the same base. So if you're giving everybody an equal amount, but they're starting out on different bases, are they really going to have the opportunity to compete and achieve? That's why we purposefully, as an administration, the president, myself, the secretary, and everyone in our administration are so dedicated to a specific principle, which is that of equity. The nature of democracy there are two sides to it in terms of the nature of it. There's a duality. On the one hand, when democracy is intact, it is incredibly strong in terms of the strength it bestows on the individuals in terms of their rights and their freedoms. Incredibly strong in terms of what it does for its people. On the other hand, it's very fragile. Our democracy will only be as intact as our willingness to fight for it. And so fight we must, and fight we will. You know, I think so much about, I talk about, you know, we talk about the arc. I think about it as also like a relay race, and those who carried the baton and were measured by what they did when they had it, and then they passed it to us.
Yeah. Well,
and the point will be, what do we do while we're carrying the baton?
Before we pass
it. Understanding that the race will never be over. But the question is, what do you do in the time when you're carrying the baton?
That's exactly
right.
I mean, honestly, it's like kindergarten.
I love Venn diagrams. I do.
It was real excited. They were like, same. Someone is drawing one right now.
Something I love, which is to always think about complex issues through the frame of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams. So I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, you know, the three circles. I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do. Among the many things that I like, I love Venn diagrams. You know, the three circles. I love Venn diagrams. I just throw it into a Venn diagram. I'll tell you everything you need to know about any issues. I love Venn diagrams. I really do. I love Venn diagrams. It's just something about those three circles. Let me just say, I love Venn diagrams. I really love Venn diagrams. You know, the circles, right? Three usually. I asked my team to remember Venn diagrams, those three circles, right? And then let's just see where they overlap. I love Venn diagrams. I really do. The three circles, and then they overlap. One of the things I love is Venn diagrams. Any math teachers in the room? I love Venn diagrams. I've actually asked my team to do a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. I just love Venn diagrams. The three circles, right? Sometimes there are more. I like Venn diagrams. Okay, so if you look, I do. This is that community who understands and can see what is possible unburdened by what has been. You must have and know that you are applauded for having the ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. Always believe in what can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. That can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. Seeing what is possible unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. Where we can be unburdened by where we have been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Unburdened by what has been. What could be unburdened by what had been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What could be unburdened by what had been. I got some words. I got the vocabulary. And yeah, I am a radical.